I guess this is episode 1 of the podcast. It is January 2nd. So yeah, this podcast was designed so that I can learn how to better articulate my opinions on things. The podcast will be in 4 sections. Some of them may vary. We're going to start with client wins. We'll talk about something that I have an opinion on so I can learn how to articulate that. We will break down the science of an exercise. We might bust some myths. We might talk about what I'm doing with training. I live in the city, so sometimes there's weird noises outside. Cool. So starting off with client wins. I just finished training with one of my clients who is going out on maternity leave. She is absolutely kicking butt. We will call her R. R came into me with some back problems where she couldn't sit down for a long time and couldn't stand up for a long time and couldn't take a walk for too long and couldn't bike for too long, to now being able to carry a baby to 9 months and have minimal back problems. She is stronger at the end of her pregnancy than she was going into it, which is absolutely unbelievable. And we did have a lot of hangups. It was not an easy one for her. We had a lot of times where we just really had to switch gears on what we were focusing on and just focus on keeping her moving versus actually working towards goals. But when we started at the beginning of her pregnancy, she was only able to do, I think a set of 2 push-ups for like 2 sets on the floor, the perfect form. And by the end of her pregnancy, she was doing 3 rounds of 6 push-ups on the floor with perfect form. And we brought it to the next level doing offset push-ups, where she had her one hand up on the yoga block, one hand up on the floor, and she was going all the way down and back up. And she was doing 2 reps at each side, so 4 reps total for 3 rounds. It's impressive. Pregnant bodies are impressive. S is 68 years old and had hip surgery a 1.5 years ago. We are working on just improving balance, improving strength, now that the hip is in a good place to start working on it. And she is doing front foot elevated split squats. So think of a lunge, but her front foot is about 3 inches off the ground, so she has to go down an extra 3 inches. And she is doing that with a 45-pound dumbbell in her hand. And, oh man, it's impressive. So she's doing it with a 45-pound dumbbell in her hand for 7 reps, which is absolutely unbelievable. Which just goes to show the work that we've been doing for her hips post-surgery. Sometimes life isn't about lifting as much as you can. Sometimes it's just being able to lift as much as you need to. Something that pisses me off about the fitness industry is that it's all geared towards, I mentioned this earlier, geared towards making our bodies smaller. It's all about losing weight or gaining muscle and being super fit and being able to like run really fast or run really long. And I think it's really good to have those aspirations. I'm not knocking them. Like, yes, it's healthy to lose weight, to be at a weight that is not causing a ton of health complications. And it is good to gain muscle because we need muscle to be strong. But I hate that the focus is just all on those 2 things, because there is so much more to life than just spending it in the gym. My philosophy with strength training is that you strength train in the gym to support the things that you want to do outside of the gym. So you strength train in the gym to support all of the things that bring you joy in your life. So I strength train to improve my posture and strengthen my legs so that I can go hiking, because that's what I love to do. My client R that I talked about earlier strength trains so that she doesn't have back pain and she can go on a bike ride on the beach or sit on the couch and watch movies with her partner. It doesn't just all have to be about getting thin or getting buff. And something that, a message that I hope to be able to spread is that strength training can just be can be like a supplement in your life, like the way that you take protein powder or greens powder or reds powder. You strength train just to support your health instead of having to have a giant lofty goal around it that is all consuming for your life. That's what strength training is really about. It's not about getting thin. It's not about getting buff. It's about truly enjoying your life and being able to explore the things that you're passionate about. This is something that I hear people talk about pretty often when they come into a consultation with me, is they want to improve their posture and improve their stamina. And it is so much more than just sitting upright at your desk. The actual process is assessing what your joint mobility is and where the posture impingements are coming. Because for some people, they're having posture issues like me because their rib cages are immobile and a little bit too tight. So for me, it's hard to stand up with a straight back and stand up proud because my ribs don't want to move. They just want to hold me down. For other people, it is a hunch in their upper back that is due to the muscle is just completely losing strength. And for other people, it's due to shoulder mobility. So maybe their shoulder joints won't let them reach their hands above their head, and as a result, they can't stand up straight. So the first step is getting an assessment for where the issue with the posture is actually coming. And after that, it's being able to target those little muscles. So the most common one that I do see is that the upper back muscles are stretched out and just really weak because you're spending all day with them in a stretched position, using your chair to support you, and so they're not actually learning how to activate and hold you upright. And so the big muscles that we need to work on there are the rhomboids to strengthen those, as well as serratus posterior to help you pull your shoulder blades back and down so that you can get your chest up nice and proud. And for those of you who don't know what those muscles are, the rhomboids are like those middle back muscles that you feel, right where your shoulder blades would meet, and then your serratus posterior, think about like where a woman's bra line would be, it's going to be right around that area. The serratus posterior is responsible for pulling your shoulder blades back and down so you can have that nice upright posture. And we would be choosing exercises specifically to strengthen those muscles, as well as ab exercises. They're going to help people keep their chest up to hold that in the position. Because we're taking a look at the body to say, okay, where are we being held back? And we need to treat the body as a system. So it's not just that your upper back muscles are weak, it's that your abs work together with your upper back muscles that work together with serratus posterior, which is going to hold you into that upright position. So we need to strengthen those three in combination with each other to help you to improve your posture. And for the first 6 to 12 weeks, depending on the person, it is literally just teaching those muscles how to activate and getting them used to activating in that pattern. And once they're starting to get themselves into that position, then we can really start drilling strength into it. So for the first, I think I said 6 to 12 weeks, we're doing reps of probably 8 to 12 with a really low weight because we're just saying, hey, muscles, like you need to work. This is how you work. Let's build some endurance in you. And once after we transition out of that, when the muscles are being able to understand how they need to work in those patterns, then from there what we do is we start adding strength and we start adding muscle tone into it. So this is where we're dropping down into a probably 8 to 10 rep zone, and we're focusing on heavier weights. So if you're thinking on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being like you could do it forever and get bored, 10 being you couldn't possibly finish what you're doing, we want you at a 7. So that means by the time you get to the end of a set, then you are, by the time you get to the end of a set, you could do 3 more. Like you can muscle them out, but you're not gonna. You're gonna leave those in the tank. And that's how we're going to get the proper muscle and strength development that we're looking for. And then after that, it's just for that, it's a continuous building process. That's probably itself going to take about 12 to 20 weeks, depending on what your goals are. And then once you have improved the posture there, you kind of decide where you want to go after that. So that's the breakdown of the science of what you need to actually do to fix your posture. You can look online to figure out exercises for rhomboids or serratus posterior. You can also check out my Facebook page, which is Movement is Medicine. You can go ahead and just request there. I'll be happy to teach you some exercises that you can be doing for yourself. Something that I love about January is that people are starting to get interested in their fitness and they want to start taking their health seriously and they want to make some changes. I think that's really aspirational and really important because the only way that we can really enjoy a long and healthy life is to make sure that we have strong muscles, that we have good stamina, because these things are going to reduce our risk of injury and help us stay active for longer. It's going to give us a better quality of life once we hit our 60s, 70s, and 80s. I don't think most people know that they don't have to deal with regular back pain. But it does not have to be ignored. It drives me absolutely insane how much people's suffering has just been normalized. Where once you're 25, once you're 30, just getting random back pain and knee pain is a normal thing, because it's not. It just means that there's something wrong in the system is your body, and that it needs to be fixed or looked at. There's not enough focus in U.S. healthcare system on preventative care. Fitness is used as a way to make our bodies smaller. And it is also a way for us to prove our value for, oh, I can lift this much, or I can get away with only eating this many calories. Well, that's not really what it's about. What we need to do is strengthen our joints so that we're not getting those random pains. So we don't end up with injuries, we don't end up in PT, we don't end up in surgery. And let's go. I just learned how to make empanadas. I'm very excited about it. When I was little, I had a neighbor down the street who was Puerto Rican, and he would make empanadas every once in a while. And I remember when he did, he would bring us just a giant metal, like a giant tinfoil container of them. So he'd be walking down the street. Oh, it just makes me happy. And he would always share them with my family. So I just always remember watching him walk down the street with this giant tinfoil container filled with empanadas to the top, knocking on our front door, and just handing them over to my mom, and me being so excited. And I just recently learned how to make them on my own, and they're not nearly as good as what he made, but they just make my heart feel warm and cozy. I love a good empanada. The interesting statistic that I saw was that only 9% of people actually accomplish their New Year's resolutions. And by the end of February, 43% of people will have already fallen off the wagon. I just find that to be an insane amount. And unfortunately, it's not at all surprising because just because the day on the calendar changes doesn't mean suddenly everything in your life is going to change. The reason that those things weren't happening in the first place were because you didn't have the systems in place to be able to support them. You're saying, oh, I want to go to the gym 5 days a week after not having gone to the gym at all. And now suddenly you're putting more stress on your body than you can handle. You're exhausted, understandably, mentally and physically, because your body is not used to this habit. And then people bail because it's too hard, or they're too tired, or they're too sore. And I absolutely cannot blame them. And it sucks. But that's why building up to have sustainable systems and sustainable habits are so important. So I guess the difference here is to explain what a system is versus a habit. A habit would be going to the, oh, hey, Noodle. I have a cat. His name is Noodle. He is an orange tabby. He has 4 white paws and a white belly. He also has a white bib, and he has eyeliner around his eyes. Natural, it's all white. He's really freaking cute, and I love him a lot. Oh, big stretch, buddy. Big stretch. So, a habit would be going to the gym 5 days a week. And the system would be the things that you do to get yourself there. So, you set out your clothes the night before. Oh, big stretch, buddy. You set out your clothes the night before. You already decide ahead of time what your workout's going to be. So, you have a workout plan. You have your snacks laid out for the day so you can just get up and get out the door and leave. You have a water bottle prepped and ready. So, the systems are the things that help support the habits to happen. And without those systems, you're going to fail. You can say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week. But then what you're not realizing is all the pre effort it takes to pick out your clothes and to make breakfast in the morning and to have your coffee and then to commute to the gym. So you need to take the time to sit down and think about those systems. An example for myself is oh buddy, I have a partner who lives by my gym that I go to. And so I work all of my workouts around when I am going to see him. Because I know I'll see him on Tuesday night and I'll stay over and I'll be in the area on Wednesday. So I always strength train on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, as well as every other Saturday. And those are my guaranteed strength training days. Something else that I do to make sure that I'm getting my steps in is based on our. Something else that I do, like another system that I have in place to make sure that I'm getting my steps in, because it's really easy just to say, oh, I'm going to go take a walk in the morning, is I wake up with him 3 days a week. And I know, fix some stuff on my laptop. No noodle. Thank you. So I wake up with him 3 days a week, and 2 of those days are work days for him. I start work, well, both of us, I start work later than he does. So when he leaves the apartments to go to work, I leave the apartment to go on a walk. And so my system is leaving with him to make sure I make it out the door. And then on Sundays, anyway, sorry, on Sundays, my system is to, hey, Noodle. Also, hey, buddy. If he's at my apartment, what I do is I leave with him to go take a walk. And if I'm at his apartment, then I make sure that I walk halfway home. And that way I am getting in my necessary steps for the day. Yeah, I know. So that way I'm making sure I get in my necessary steps for the day. So that's my system. The system for going to the gym is making sure that I am getting in my strength training around the times that I'm going to be closest to the gym, and I'm getting my walking in whenever him and I are separating from each other to go about our own days. And your systems can look completely different. Maybe you don't have a partner, but maybe you have a best friend that you like to hang out with frequently. So when they leave your apartment or your house, you can go take a walk as well. Or maybe you have a friend that likes to work out and you can just tag along with them on your workouts. So your system is that you have their accountability to make sure that you're doing it and that you're leaving with them. For 9%, only 9% of people are following through on the resolutions, and 91% of people are failing, is because when they're setting those New Year's resolutions, they're not thinking about the systems that they need to set up in order to accomplish that. So this week, I would challenge you while you're thinking about your New Year's resolutions to think about what systems you might need to support that New Year's resolution. Cool. I guess what am I doing in my training is another thing we can talk about. What am I doing in my training? I am just recovering from COVID. I guess not just, it's now, I think I got it 8 weeks ago now, so I'm 6 weeks in recovery. It sucked. I grew up a secondhand smoke for 18 years of my life, so my lungs are kind of shitty. No matter how much, so I've got the combination of secondhand smoke and low blood pressure, which is not a great combo. So my lungs are kind of shitty. Even with the low blood pressure itself, I have a hard time with like high intensity activity just because my blood does not keep up enough. My heart doesn't keep up enough to pump the blood to where it needs to go. And then add in the secondhand smoke lungs, and my lung capacity is not as great as it should be. And it seems like no matter how much training I do, once I get like hit to the ground, I am out. Like the COVID vaccines itself were just brutal on my system. So yeah, 6 weeks post recovery. The last 6 weeks, I have really been focusing on just getting in 10,000 steps a day. I remember after I had finally tested negative for COVID, it took like 11 or 12 days. I could not walk up my staircase without having to stop and sit down at getting my steps in. And at first, it was absolutely exhausting because my body was not in shape for that. So I would walk a half a mile and have to sit down. But eventually, I could walk a mile and then need to sit down, and then a mile and a half. And oh, I was so excited when I could finally walk to work again. My work is 3.5 miles away from my apartment. And as a way to get my steps in, sometimes I will just walk to work because that takes care of all of them for the day. And I couldn't do that for 8 weeks. It sucked. And now I'm finally at the point where I can do it. I am really tired at the end. I like need caffeine and a lot of water and a lot of food to just get my system back up to being able to be functional, but I am able to do it now. This year I am hoping to hike Mount Washington, and I would like to do 4,000 footers as well in addition to that. That's going to be a lot of work though. Mount Washington is the highest mountain east of the Mississippi. Yes, east. And it is 6,200 feet in elevation. I'm going to look up to see how long it is. It's a 7.9 mile hike with 3,200 feet of elevation gain. It's a brutal mountain. It's like super exposed at some points. Other points are like dead. So when you start, you're in the trees. And then the trees start to thin, you get to alpine level, and there are no trees. So you're just in the straight sun. And God forbid there's wind, then you are in the wind as well, just exposed to the elements. It, from what I've heard, is brutal. And that is something that I would like to be able to do this year. I want to be able to complete Mount Washington, and if I really want to make it tough on myself, I'd like to complete it in under 6 hours. So my strength training is geared towards improving my posture, because when I can improve my posture, then I will be able to breathe better. I kind of mentioned it prior in this episode, but my ribs are relatively immobile. So I've been doing a lot of exercises to help get my ribs mobile so that I can expand my lungs a lot more. And then the other part of my training is cardio. I am currently working on just being able to walk a couple miles. So I will probably work up to walking 5 miles straight without dying. And then I'll transition to stair climbs. I have a hill up the street from me that I really enjoy doing stair climbs on. So I'll go up and down, up and down, and up and down for hours on end until I'm able to mimic that hike. So yeah, those are my fitness goals for the year. That's what I'll be working on. That's a podcast. I am starting to articulate my thoughts. Thanks for listening.